Is Planet Zoo?
So Planet Zoo is the next installment in the Planet franchise. It is a fully detailed and deep management sim, and it will have a lot of new gameplay and new management that we've added to this to make it really a fully new experience.
So can you tell us a bit more about the park that we're seeing here?
Yes, so this park, we'll get a better view of it later, has been inspired on the Serengeti and the Ngorongoro crater in Tanzania. As you can see here, everything has been built piece by piece, just like you would in Planet Coaster. So it gives you that same kind of boundless creativity that you had back then, but with lots of new themes and assets. And now we're getting quite a nice view here. You can see we're in a crater, and this specific park is a safari experience. Yeah. So it's got a lot more open expanses than you might traditionally expect from a classical zoo.
So we've got these beautiful reticulated giraffes here.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the authenticity of each animal?
Yeah, so for every animal that we create, we try and be as authentic as possible. We go into all the little details. How does it walk? How does it behave? You know, what does it look like? We try and really replicate the fur. We want to make it feel as lifelike as possible. And, you know, we do that for the big ones as well as we do for the little ones. So here you've got a little springbok. It's quite a lot smaller than the big giraffes are, but it's still got the same amount of detail to it. And if we try and get a close-up on one of our lovely giraffes, then we can see the fur shader that we've been working on, because it's really quite exquisite. Here we go. I think the giraffes are a really good candidate for showing this off because they've got that lovely little mane in the back. They're all fuzzy and cute, and it gives you a really good opportunity to look at the little ear floppity flops that it does. So these will live in social groups. If the animal actually has a need for a social group, they will do that. They will live together, they will breed to create young. We'll be celebrating, you know, the full life cycle in Planet Coaster with celebration when there's a birth and mourning when there is a death.
And each animal is unique?
Each animal is unique, so they are genetically determined. They will get genes from their parents. I know that fur, right? So they will look like their parents. So you can see family resemblance. Their patterns will be unique to the giraffes and stuff. So you will definitely be able to see, you know, where their lineage is, where they come from. And that's not just the way they look, that's also how long they will live, how healthy they will be, how well they will breed. All impacts it, so you have to really manage your animal population well.
Wow, yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, and it's lovely to see that you can have mixed habitats as well.
Yeah, well, a lot of animals in the wild would, you know, live together. They have kind of traits that play well with each other.
Right.
And we've got another example of a mixed habitat just across the lake, which will illustrate that as well.
These animals look absolutely outstanding.
They're so good. The character team does such a good job on them. And the animation team as well. It's all just stunning. So in this habitat, we have some zebra and some black wildebeest. And they, in the wild, they will also share because their complementary behaviors help them to detect predators. Exactly. So by putting them in the same habitat, we consider both the animal species to be enriched.
Oh, cool.
And these are also herding animals, which means that they will feel the need to form a pack, and often you will see them herding together through the habitat.
Oh, that's amazing.
You just touched on animal enrichment. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
So there's a lot of different ways you can keep your animals happy. This can be, you know, by the basics of food and water, but also by providing them with items that provide enrichment, both in their food, as in, you know, things they like to do, playing, that kind of stuff. So you have to make sure that your animals have a lot of enrichment items to keep them happy and healthy mentally.
It's beautiful. When you select them, you can see there's so many different things for you to keep an eye on, for people to get stuck into.
There are
really
a lot of needs that you will have to tend as a player. There's a lot of really deep management, which I'm really looking forward to everyone exploring.
So as you said before, the terrain affects the animals.
Yes, and a good way to show this is by looking at our saltwater crocodiles. Yeah, so even though these guys don't have any fur on them, obviously, their scales look absolutely amazing.
Details.
It is so gorgeous. So terrain will impact the happiness of your animals. They will want a certain kind of makeup. They will want, you know, a certain amount of soil, a certain amount of rock. They will want grass or trees, or will not want it, depending on what their natural habitat is like. So your mission as a player is to try and make the habitat you're providing for them here as close to their natural habitat as possible. And here we can see their name's Melati, would like a little bit more soil in their habitat, and we can add that really easily using the terrain tools that we had in Planet Coaster. So here you can see Sam selecting some soil. You're just gonna tweak those settings a bit.
Now, this is one of my favorite bits because it just immediately
Yes.
updates there, and it's so
So you can
well
see,
done.
yeah, by just painting in a bit more soil, the happiness level goes up. And something that was previously in Planet Coaster just aesthetics is now in Planet Zoo actually part of the management. So you making a really pretty looking habitat is not just pretty for you, it's also perfect for the animal. It will be happier if it's got its own flora in there, if it's got the right amount of grass and rock and everything in there. So it adds a lot of meaningfulness to your creativity. And here we've got an African wild dog looking really cute. And that's one of these enrichment items. As you can see, there's a bit of meat attached to it so that they can have that experience of eating in that way, as opposed to just being fed. But of course, they do have to be fed, and all of these needs, and then the habitat needs to be kept clean. And one of the ways you can do this is by hiring some staff. So here, Sam's hiring us a keeper. As you can see, the keeper will go between habitats, checking up on how the animals are doing and if they need any food or drink. And then once he determines, oh yeah, these animals look like they're maybe a little bit hungry, he's going to go off into his keeper hut to prepare said food. And this is really exciting. So I'm happy to tell you guys that in Planet Zoo, the interiors of buildings are no longer off limits. So you'll be able to see your keeper at work in his own little habitat. So here you can see he's going to start preparing some food. The food can be updated through research and made perfect for your animal's dietary requirements and needs. Yeah. That will, of course, make it more expensive as well, which will play into the management side of things. There's been a lot of attention to detail, even in this. A lot of the spotlight is on our animals and how authentic they are. But we also want to make sure that we keep that same amount of attention to detail in these things as well. So here we can see he's done preparing the food. So the food that you prepare will also be done per animal, and you can research more into the animal to make the food more appropriate for their specific dietary requirements and needs. This will also make it more expensive, so that plays into the management again. So here he's just going to quickly fill up that tray of these hungry dogs. There we go.
Feed.
Yeah, and they will come, sometimes they'll see the keeper entering and they'll just be like, oh, it's food time, and they'll all start running towards the food tray, and that's really fun to see.
But in terms of zookeepers,
yes.
How do you optimize their schedules and their time in your zoo?
Yes, so you can place down multiple keeper huts, which means that you'll have more bases they can go to. Right. Or you can place more habitat gates, but there's a downside to that. So the guests will not want to see the staff facilities.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah, it upsets them. And that means you gotta find out a way to keep them separate. So either you put more scenery in front of it, or you use staff paths, which is a new feature that we've added to Planet Zoo. So these paths can only be walked on by the staff. Guests can't walk on it. And that means you can really easily cordon off certain areas of the zoo for staff only. Yes.
Yeah,
That's brilliant. That's
Yeah.
so exciting.
So that allows you to maximize your keeper's, output while making sure that it's still, behind closed doors like you would in a regular zoo.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we are seeing the Africa theme
African
here.
theme, yes.
Will there be different themes in the future?
There will be different themes. We'll be talking about them at a later date. I can't wait to show you guys the other ones that we've got in store, because there's some lovely things in there.
Lovely.
I'm really looking forward to it.
And Planet Zoo is quite big on, we're authentic.
Yeah.
We're not just a management game. We want to be, true to real life zoos as well.
Yeah.
And something that plays a huge role there is conservation and preserving natural habitats of animals,
Yeah.
and sort of educating the guests about that.
Yeah.
How does that translate into Planet Zoo?
So Planet Zoo is based off the modern zoo. So as you said, we want to make sure that we educate our guests about the animals that they've come here to see. So nowadays, when you go to a zoo, you want to learn more about the animals that you're coming here to see. You want to know about their habitat, you want to know how they're doing. And one of the ways you can educate your guests is by using these Zoopedia screens. So these will be relevant to the animals in the habitat next to it. You place them close to a habitat. You can tell them to display information about one of the animals in the habitat. And then this information will get better as you research more into the animal, and thus your guests' education need, which is a new need that they come into the park with, will, get filled up.
Of course, rides played such an important aspect in Planet Coaster, but can you tell us about the rides that we're seeing here?
Yes, so this is one of our transport rides, which is a 4x4 off-road vehicle. Just like in Planet Coaster, the track is player defined and you have many options available to you for fine-tuning. You'll be able to change how it looks, you'll be able to change the colors, and you'll be able to set a ride price. So these are really handy if you want to get a really nice, good view of the zoo, and it's also an excellent way to rest tired feet for your guests.
Yeah, again, like just to call out the animation team here, like the little tiny movements on each animal, they're so authentic and gorgeous. It's really, really well done.
Yeah, everyone's put a lot of hard work and soul into these animals.
Yeah.
These aren't just, some animals that you come here and see. They have a personality, they have things they like to do, things they don't like, and they will respond, appropriately. And that's one of my favorite things when you're testing this game. Sometimes we'll come in here and they'll all be asleep. Sometimes we'll come in here and they're all doing crazy stuff, and you can't anticipate that, just like you would in an actual zoo, and that's one of my favorite things about the game. So these are chimpanzees. They have very extensive social needs, very extensive enrichment needs that you will have to meet as a player, a very challenging animal, and they will also climb. So as a reminder, everything here is built piece by piece. It's just amazing to see all of this that you can build yourself. They can climb on anything that can be deemed climbable.
Wow, okay.
So if you want to go wild and build your own climbing frame, you totally can, and these chimps will love it. Yeah.
And you can use anything from trees, rocks, anything that's a climbable surface.
Yes, your animals will interact with everything that the player, builds and makes. They'll be swimming and walking and climbing player-made environments.
Amazing.
Yeah, which
you
is
have to
one
be
of
careful with those roofs as well.
Yes, yes, good point, Bo. It's so much fun, and it means that, again, your creativity is going to be really meaningful, because your climbing frame's not just going to look good, it's actually going to function. And that's, one of my favorite things about this game. I think it has a touch of magic to it, to seeing the chimps just scampering everywhere is so satisfying.
But not just that, it's also an amazing achievement of the team to be able to pull this off. Like, that seems something really special.
We've had coders working on this pretty much non-stop for over a year now. They've put in so much hard work to get all of this up and running. And I think there's, no one else is doing anything like this right now, so it's really special to us.
I know that a lot of people will want to see some of the smaller animals. These animals are absolutely outstanding, they're gorgeous, but we need to see some of the exhibit animals.
I am loving this tour.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's great.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. There we go. So here's an example of an exhibit building. In this specific exhibit that we'll be showing you today, we have the Lesser Antillean iguana.
So small.
So you can see him there. We're lucky that they're out and about. Sometimes they like to hide, which you might know from, visiting zoos yourself. Absolutely. These are the animals that usually you have to do a bit of looking for. So just like the other animals, these have things that you need to tweak to make them feel at their happiest. You can change the temperature and the humidity in their exhibits to match what they would usually expect from a habitat, and that will improve their general welfare. They have needs, just like the larger animals, and they are just as important as your large habitat animals, and you have to take care of them the same way, and if you provide for them well, they will also breed. So there's a lot of enrichment levels that you can add to your exhibit, and these will add to their happiness with their habitat. And they will also mean that if you have two exhibits with the same animal in them, you can still make them look unique to each other, because you could swap out which enrichment you're using on every single one.
So we've spoken about enrichment items, terrain, anything that can affect your animal's welfare. Is there anything else that we need to know?
Well, we'll have a little glimpse of it here, but obviously animals' welfare depends on their environment most of the time. If it's a hot environment, you'll want to make sure that they're not too warm if they're not used to that, cold, not too cold if they're not used to that, and weather, just like you can see here. We will be going more in depth about weather at a later date, but we just want to give you a little sneaky peeky at what we've got going on here. If you build a shelter, they will shelter under it when it gets wet, or sometimes you can find these chimps sheltering under the bridge, which will also occlude the rain, so they can hide anywhere that the rain can't touch.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible the amount of detail for each individual animal that has gone into this game, and there's so much for people to explore and manage and creative. Like, there's something for everyone, it seems.
And there's so many things we haven't even touched on. You know, our biome selections, life cycles in detail. We've only shown you the tip of the iceberg when it comes to our animal list. And I'm really looking forward to talking more about these as we go along.
You know, the key points of daily life, and your animal welfare is all the way at the forefront of that. And that's not just for the player, but that's also for your guests. Your guests are going to come into the zoo, and they don't just want to see the pretty animals, they also want to learn more about them and understand them. And those are all things that we really try and push for in this game.
I love that. And I mean, there are some games that I want to not be like real life, but a game like this, that's exactly what I want. I want this to be like real life, where I, as a zoo goer, would want to go and learn how I can invest in ecology and invest in conservation. So I'm stoked about that. And I know, Adrian, you have played Planet games before, and you've been excited even about the gameplay mechanics.
Absolutely.
What are you looking for here?
I think one of the most important things to me is that in Planet Coaster, one thing that's super beneficial is the fact that you can craft a lot of your own stuff. You can kind of create your own environment using the tools that are there. And I was kind of reading about how in this game you can do the same thing, except now you have animals interacting with those same things that you built. And they're not static animations where if it's this structure, it'll be this animation. They're reacting on the fly with the way they want to. How does that work?
So all your animals are going to be interacting with player-defined surfaces, terrain, water. And in the case of some of our primates, you know, they enjoy a good little climb. You'll be able to build your own climbing frames piece by piece. So you won't be putting down one big built climbing frame. You're actually going to be constructing it for them. So something in which you can express your creativity is actually going to feed back into the gameplay. That thing you build, you know, Western chimpanzees are actually going to be running on top of it, and I think that's one of the best parts about the game.
I saw a phrase that said the creativity is the gameplay.
Yes.
Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, all your creativity will feed into the management. If you have a habitat, your animal is going to have certain expectations of what that should look like. For instance, if we have a crocodile, it's going to expect a certain amount of soil, a certain amount of water, and the way you lay that habitat out is not just going to look pretty, it's also going to make it happier. When you're painting different terrain on, you're actually going to, in real time, see the sliders go up on the percentage of land that that animal wants in its habitat. So it's a really good kind of feedback system to show you that everything you put in matters to the animals and to the guests.
Okay, so here's the thing. Here's one of the elements that I'm excited about is maybe not like real life, right? Because I want my dog to be the happiest animal in the entire world, right?
Yeah.
And I have certain cues that I observe, but she can't tell me how happy she is. But you're saying there are sliders that will show me animal contentment. Is that right?
Yes.
Yay! So I get actual real-time feedback from the animals so that I can make them the happiest animals in the world.
They have about 4 categories of welfare, and all of these categories subdivide into more detailed management. And not just will you be able to see it through the menu, you'll also hear it. Some of the animals, when they're hungry, they'll start making noises.
Oh my gosh,
that's
we have
can see the
African
sliders,
wild dogs, to go back to your dog analogy. They will be whimpering and whining when they're hungry. So as a player, you will get these audio cues as well as the actual menu cues to tell you something's wrong. So you can go and fix it.
What were you saying, Bo?
Oh, you could just see the sliders on the.
There
they are.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
And it all updates in real time. So when you're adjusting something in the habitat, you can see the sliders changing and moving, and it's the most satisfying thing to watch.
That's so cool.
On the subject of customization too, I have to wonder, as a streamer, people love interactivity, right? And I also wonder about naming conventions. So if I have a certain sub that I'm in love with and I want them to be my zebra, or if I have a certain person that I don't like as much, I want them to be like my coffee shop or something instead, right? Well, how's that work in the game?
So your animals will come in with names that are given to them. However, you can change them.
Hey.
And the names that they come in with will be relevant to their country of origin.
Oh.
So that's a nice little touch that we've got. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that I was even learning, speaking of education and of animal welfare, is we saw the zebras and the wildebeest in the same enclosure, and you guys were telling me that that was intentional. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, so we'll be doing mixed habitats. Essentially, if your animal would benefit from living together with a different animal, we want to encourage that. And plain zebra live very well together with black wildebeest because in the wild, their complementary behaviors help them to detect predators. So by putting them together, we consider them to be enriched, and that's really positive for their welfare.
Oh, cool. I've seen the word enrichment around this game a lot. What does that mean?
Yeah. There's loads of different enrichment items in Planet Zoo. So I don't know that we're passing through the demo a little bit here, but there's a couple of things that you can see that are items for the animals to interact with, just to keep them from, because you have needs like social needs, hunger, all of that will be there, but also enrichment, of course. You don't want them to get bored. You want them to have a good, happy, healthy life in the zoo. So yeah, we have all of that for everyone as well.
Yeah, we've essentially gone and talked to zookeepers and asked, right, how do you keep this animal mentally engaged? Because even if it has a really nice habitat, you want it to be able to do things and have activities. So we'll be looking at enrichment feeders where the animal has to work to get to their food. The giraffe, for instance, has a cone thing. You have to get in with their tongue to get to the food. And because that's part of what they would do in the wild, it contributes to their enrichment. And that's also ranging to toys. You can see your African wild dogs playing with a box and stuff. So there's a lot of things for them to have fun with.
Your face was so great, Adrian. It's like, oh, I want to watch a dog play with a box so bad.
I like animals so much, and I like the idea that this game caters to the idea of what it's like to go into a zoo, because a lot of times you go to a zoo and you go to like the cheetah exhibit and not doing anything, and people go, make the cheetah do something, and the game does the same thing. From what I've heard is that sometimes the cheetah is going to lay down because that's what they do.
It's funny that you mentioned the cheetah, because we've been running the demo behind closed doors, and the cheetah is literally the least cooperative animal in the entire zoo. We've had only one demo where we went into the habitat, and it was using a scratching post. Every other time, they've just been lying down like, nah,
they're lounging.
make me do it.
Can you capture that? Like, there's like a screenshot thing you can do, or a video capture that you can do?
Yeah, you can take screenshots in game and stuff, so yeah. You can look at your cheetahs being disobedient to you the entire time. It's really good fun.
It's like I have my cat at home.
Yeah.
Okay, Adrian's like planning to print these out and frame them and put them on the wall.
Entrance to my house, going to the bathroom, it's going to be nothing but planets the entire time.
Amazing.
I mean, we've had tons of questions, so obviously we've kind of been ignoring what's going on in the demo, but are there any things in the demo that you really wanted to point out that we missed?
Well, you've timed it really well. I think I mentioned climbing frames earlier, but here you can see a first look at some of our primates. So these are the Western chimpanzees, and they're a highly intelligent social animal, so they have a lot of enrichment needs that you're going to have to take care of, and one of those is climbing. So the climbing frame that you saw there, that one is built piece by piece. That's one beam that we're using, one platform that we're using, all put together and kind of arranged so that your chimps can have a lovely time on it.
Yeah.
Every time I look at them, my heart just says I love them and I want to protect them.
I know.
I am so excited to get into this. So when we get our hands on the game, you said that, what was the date?
5th of November.
5th of November. Okay, great. And what kind of features are we going to specifically look for at launch? What are the cool things that we're going to be able to start playing with right away?
So habitat construction is going to be really fun to play with. You will also be able to build buildings just like you did in Planet Coaster. Ultimately, you're in complete creative control. I think one of the fun parts is also going to be researching your animals, finding out more about them, fine-tuning all their habitats and all their food down to, you know, the perfect.
Build a mountain from a little hill. Gonna build a mountain, I hope I will. Gonna build a mountain, gonna build it high. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, I only know I'm gonna try.